Thanks to our friends on the 5. Welcome to Hannity. We are live tonight until midnight, and this is a Fox News alert. The former FBI Director James Comey's testimony is a huge victory for Donald Trump today and a massive defeat for the Democrats and, of course, the propaganda media. Now, there are also some legal experts who say tonight James Comey may have broken the law. Jay Sekulow will weigh in later in the show tonight. Also, Donald Trump Jr., Laura Ingraham, Greg Jarrett, Geraldo Rivera, Ari Fleischer, Sarah Carter, John Solomon all join us. But first, the truth and the biggest takeaways from today's congressional hearing. This is information you will not get anywhere else in the media. It's important, and it's tonight's opening monologue. All right, here's what we learned today from James Comey's testimony. The President of the United States never obstructed justice. And in fact, the President actually encouraged the FBI Director Comey to go forward with any and all investigations into campaign associates and involvement with Russia. Now, James Comey confirmed several times that the President and the White House did not, let me say again, did not ask him to stop the Russia investigation. Now, Comey said multiple times that President Trump was not and ever under investigation, which, by the way, why did he only say this today? Why couldn't the FBI director have come out sooner? We'll answer that question tonight. Now, we also learned that James Comey selectively was leaking information to try and damage the president. What so-called champion of law and justice would ever do that to the president of the United States? Of course, to destroy Trump. Media and Democrats, they were all proven to be completely wrong about their Russia collusion theories, and they were exposed today to be lying to you, the American people, for almost 10 months. And the biggest news today was the indictment of the Obama administration and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Comey admitted that Lynch successfully was able to pressure him into toning down his own language when speaking publicly about Hillary Clinton's email investigation. Wow. We're going to do a deep dive into that also tonight. But I want to go back to several things I said about James Comey right here on this program on May the 9th. That was the night that he got fired. And the reason that it's so necessary to do this is you cannot look at today's testimony, as some in the media are, in this little itsy-bitsy bubble. All of Comey's past actions are relevant. Equal justice under the law. It matters. Now, Comey, this is the important part. He failed you, the American people, at every single turn. He disrespected our Constitution. He didn't care about equal application of the rule of law. He created a two-tier justice system, one for Hillary and Bill Clinton, and one for the rest of America, by ignoring the many, many crimes we know she committed. For example, remember when Comey laid out everything that was found on Hillary Clinton's private email server that she stuffed in a mom-and-pop shop bathroom closet that had top secret, classified, and even special access program information on it. Take a look at this.
There is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. 7 email chains concern matters that were classified at the top secret special access program at the time they were sent and received. Any reasonable person in Secretary Clinton's position or in the position of those with whom she was corresponding about those matters should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation. None of these emails should have been on any kind of unclassified system. But their presence is especially concerning because all of these emails were housed on unclassified personal servers, not even supported by full-time security staff, like those found at agencies and departments of the United States government, or even with a commercial email service like Gmail.
Now, Comey literally explained that Hillary Clinton broke several laws, committed several felonies, but then what? Well, we saw him do what he's done now multiple times. He started to play politics instead of doing his job. Now, for the record, if you or I did a fraction of what Hillary Clinton did, we would tonight be sitting in a jail cell. Like Christian Saucier, remember the guy behind bars for a year? He took 6 pictures inside the submarine he was so proud of working in. And then, of course, there's the Clinton Foundation and the pay-to-play scheme and the Uranium One deal. Hillary Clinton gave away 20% of America's uranium. Now, by the way, there's a real Russia scandal. Why didn't Comey bother to investigate or look into any of these things? Now, the answer is simple, and it continues to be exposed. Sadly, James Comey is nothing more than a partisan and a political hack, as I said on the 9th. And by the way, his testimony once again today proved that. Let's start with Comey's motives. From the very beginning, it was very clear that he was seeking revenge and was only out to create smoke and confuse people and confuse the issues around all of this. And Comey admitted that he was bitter and upset about being fired, disgruntled, and being called out by the White House for failing miserably at his job. And then there's this exchange, which shoots down any narrative of obstruction of justice. It's gone. It's finished. Take a look.
He said, "I hope." Now, like me, you probably did hundreds of cases, maybe thousands of cases, charging people with criminal offenses. And of course, you have knowledge of the thousands of cases out there that where people have been charged. Do you know of any case where a person has been charged for obstruction of justice, or for that matter, any other criminal offense, where they said or thought they hoped for an outcome? You may have taken it as a direction, but that's not what he said.
Correct. That's why
he said, "I hope."
Wow. Amazing, right? Now, by the way, we're putting the law up on the side of the screen, and as we noted last night, if Comey thought that there were crimes being committed, he had a legal duty to come forward immediately. But Comey did not do that. Then there's the obvious question everybody's asking. During this conversation with the president that Comey was so apparently troubled by, well, why didn't he just get up and say, "Mr. President, I think this is inappropriate. I think this is wrong"? Well, watch this exchange.
Why didn't you stop and say, "Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you"?
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have. I was so stunned by the conversation that I just took it in.
Maybe if I was stronger? That's his job. And by the way, here's another thing. If he was so concerned about the president and he told the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, that he didn't want to be left alone in a room with him, then why did Comey continue to take the president's calls after all this had allegedly happened? Now, next, there's this major revelation from Comey. You got to watch this. Pretty amazing.
Director Comey, did the president at any time ask you to stop the FBI investigation into Russian involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections?
Not to my understanding, no.
Did any individual working for this administration, including the Justice Department, ask you to stop the Russian investigation?
No.
So many lies told to you by the media. Once again, Comey admitting that nobody asked him to stop the Russia investigation. Now, let's move on to the next major point. After Comey was fired, he decided to leak information to the press. This is so unbelievably inappropriate and maybe a violation of law. We'll ask that question later. Watch this.
Did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
And was that Mr. Wittes?
No.
Who was that?
A good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law School.
Wow. So the fired, disgruntled ex-employee, ex-FBI director leaked details of his memo, hoping that it would bring about a special counsel? Now, this is beyond ridiculous, beyond inappropriate. And by the way, it shows you how calculated and political this guy really is. And you have to wonder, what else? Comey, did he leak before or maybe ordered others to leak? Now, as Senator Marco Rubio pointed out, amazing point today, the only thing that wasn't leaked in all of this is the fact that President Trump was not under investigation. By the way, he was told 3 times. Now, of course, this is likely to have been done on purpose. And finally, there's the biggest bombshell revelation from today, and that is the former Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, was able to actually influence Comey in the Clinton investigation. Watch this.
the Clinton campaign at the time was using all kinds of euphemisms, security review, matters, things like that, for what was going on. We were getting to a place where the Attorney General and I were both going to have to testify and talk publicly about it, and I wanted to know, was she going to authorize us to confirm we had an investigation? And she said, yes, but don't call it that, call it a matter. And I said, why would I do that? And she said, just call it a matter.
Nah, not an investigation. It's a matter. And add one point here. What about the meeting Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch had on the tarmac in a private jet? What did they talk about before Loretta Lynch had made her decision? That is the huge scandal here, and the abuse of power by the Obama administration. Lynch trying to influence the investigation, going directly to the FBI director. How is that not obstruction of justice? And why didn't Comey come forward and report that? And again, did he maybe break the law? We'll ask our legal experts throughout the show. Now, also, why didn't Comey create a detailed memo about that conversation with Loretta Lynch? Now, this shows you that there is a massive double standard. Now, Comey let something like that happen with Lynch, but is now trying to go after President Trump. And by the way, Comey's biases, they're so extreme, there's so many other examples. Now, Comey testified that he took, detailed memos of all of his conversations with President Trump. He didn't trust him. He thought he might lie, but he didn't do the same thing to President Obama. Now, Comey also never put Hillary Clinton under oath while she was being interviewed by the FBI, and by the way, never demanded that her conversations be recorded. Why is that? And biggest of all, Comey was desperate to come out and clear Hillary Clinton's name, but he refused to do the same thing for President Trump, who, by the way, as I mentioned, he told 3 times, told the president he wasn't under investigation. And then finally tonight, we have been saving this one for you on purpose. After so many months, about 10 months, of endlessly pushing back all of these black helicopter, tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, what did we learn today? That there is no such thing as a Trump-Russia collusion. The media has been endlessly, breathlessly lying to you night after night after night, day after day, and today they even had to admit it. Of course, the big network of black helicopter theories and tinfoil hat conspiracies is NBC. Just listen to even their own Chris Matthews, Mr. Thrill Up His Leg himself. Listen to this admission.
The assumption of the critics of the president, of his pursuers, you might say, is that somewhere along the line in the last year, the president had something to do with colluding with the Russians, something to do with the helping hand, encouraging them, feeding their desire to affect the election in some way. Some role they played, some conversation he had with Michael Flynn or Paul Manafort or somewhere. And yet what came apart this morning was that theory, because in two regards. The president said, according to the written testimony of Mr. Comey, go ahead and get anybody's satellite to my operation and nail them. I'm with you on that. So that would mean Manafort, Carter Page, someone else like that. And then he also came across what was fascinating. Comey said that basically Flynn wasn't central to the Russian investigation.
A moment of enlightenment, even for Chris Matthews. It all came apart today. There was never anywhere in any case, any admission about Trump-Russia collusion. And by the way, we were the only ones in the media who cared about looking into this deeply and telling you, the American people, the truth, and not going with lies and innuendos and propaganda and misinformation because they were advancing a political agenda. You know, the same media that colluded with Hillary Clinton in the last election, as exposed by WikiLeaks. We have been right night after night after night. These idiots in the media, almost all of them, have been flat out wrong. All conspiracy theorists, time in and time out. So guess what? It's time for those so-called journalists with their superior attitude. Maybe they should take off their tinfoil hats and put their black helicopters back in the hangars, because it's over. You have been exposed for the liars you are to the American people. And it's sad all that you have been doing all of these months without any evidence. And we've been showing you person after person after person saying no evidence of collusion. And you still kept running with a false narrative. Joining us now with reaction, President Donald Trump's son. He was on a Twitter rampage today, Donald Trump Jr. Sir, welcome back.
How's it going, Sean?
Just give me your general thoughts first. I obviously said a lot there.
Yeah, I think you probably covered it all in that monologue. I was just sitting here eating popcorn. But listen, you said it
Gee,
best.
thanks a lot.
This has been a 10-month witch hunt. This is the only thing that they had on Trump. This is what they did to distract him from being able to get the stuff done that he was elected to ultimately do. And I think now that this is all past, he can go back to doing what he promised he was going to do. There's no clouds. There's nothing getting in his way. They can't be obstructionist. He can go back to doing the things he said he was going to do for the American people, putting Americans back to work, putting America first, and getting us out of these stupid deals that America pays for and everyone else seems to benefit from but us.
You know, Don, maybe you're a bigger man than me, but to me, politically, they've been trying, they've been trying to take him out.
Yeah.
And there's been so many lies here. Number one, for example, not only did he not encourage Comey to stop, he encouraged him to go forward with the investigation. Even satellites around him, meaning the people that are close to him in his campaign and elsewhere. He never was being investigated. Comey wouldn't tell anybody. Comey then turns out to be the big
leaker. Anyone about that. He would never mention that. But Rubio said it best. That's literally the only thing that hasn't been leaked in D.C. during this time period. The fact that he was never under investigation, that there was never a shred of evidence that he did this. But this is what they hung their hat on for this long, and that's pretty scary to me. That's sad.
In three specific cases here, I believe that Comey was a political hack. I mean, there was incontrovertible, overwhelming evidence of multiple felonies committed, and he laid out the case probably better than anybody, but never pursued it. He said, well, we don't have the intent. Meanwhile, you have a server in a private mom-and-pop shop closet bathroom.
Yeah.
That's intent to... Obviously, that's mishandling of classified information, then the destruction of classified information. Then, of course, the Uranium One deal, a real Russia scandal. Then, of course, this whole Loretta Lynch issue, meeting on the tarmac with Bill Clinton before she makes her decision, A. And then the big bombshell today, please don't call it an investigation. Just call it a, what's the word she, whatever material she said.
Yeah. Well, listen, the double standard between the way he handled that with Loretta Lynch and the way he handled my father, I mean, that just goes to show you how politicized this has all been. I mean, I think his credibility in D.C., after probably an illustrious career, has to be shot because that shouldn't be happening. I mean, this is the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. The head of the FBI goes on, well, if I was a stronger man, I mean, who are we kidding, Sean? I mean, what kind of response is that?
Pathetic.
I mean, this guy's the
So
head of
pathetic.
the FBI, and that's his response? Not, hey, maybe I should follow the law and procedure and say that Trump was doing this. Maybe I should let him know that this was happening. But instead, he decides to do this. Then he leaks some notes to a friend of his because he doesn't have the guts to do it himself. He has to leak it through a friend of... I mean, where does this stop? I mean, it is nuts, but I'm just glad it's all out there because literally... Even the left, as you pointed out, with Chris Matthews saying, hey, guys, it's over. Let's move on. You know what? Let my father do his job. Let him do what the American people elected him to do.
Don, I would love to say that that's going to happen.
No, they
but when
won't
you
let it
think
go.
of the... When you, well, it's even that, but it's even deeper. When you think of the level of vitriol, hate, it's been directed at you and your brother. They're even attacking your sister and your 11-year-old brother and the president's wife and anybody close to him or anybody that expresses a like towards him and agrees with him. To me, this is about undermining the will of the American people and so delegitimizing, so damaging, so distracting, at the least, he doesn't fulfill the agenda that people elected him for. That is a serious problem in the country.
I think it is. And I mean, but the good thing about it is, honestly, I think the left has overplayed their hand so much, Sean. It's been so ridiculous, so over the top, so extreme. I mean, half the things that were reported in the New York Times, the dossier comments, all that, even Comey, in his own words, said,
Comey wanted to hire the guy.
Hey,
he wanted to hire that guy,
it's
that
just flat out
MI6 guy.
wrong. Even he's saying it. So, you know, all these things that they tried to take him out with, I think it's pushed reasonable people in here. You're never going to get the fringes, or you have one fringe and you'll never have the other, but reasonable people in the middle are seeing that this has just been one big witch hunt. They see how disgusting the swamp really is. They see the teeth that are there. And I think they're going to realize that, hey, give the guy a chance. Let him do what he was elected to do, and he'll do a phenomenal job. And you've seen that. Listen, when the Dow hits another all-time record right during the testimony, you know that he's been exonerated. I mean, the markets basically said, okay, this has been nonsense. You know, we broke another all-time high today because they saw how phony all of this D.C. nonsense is. And this is what the people voted against last time. I'm happy for them to keep doing it. It's just going to make 2020 that much easier.
You know, I want to go back to the media in particular, and all of the conspiracy theories that have been advanced. And literally, we're talking about cable-wise, thousands of hours of coverage, thousands. Then you look at the Washington Post, and the New York Times, and CNN, and ABC, and all these networks proven wrong, and now all of a sudden they're beginning to write their retractions. It just seems, as something that I said back in 2007 and 8, journalism in America is dead. The desire for truth, it's over.
You know what? The real problem is, even when they know it's wrong, as long as it fulfills their narrative, they'll leave it up there. They'll leave it up for an extra couple hours. The retraction somewhere in the middle, it just never really goes away. They can't let go. And it's not about reporting the truth anymore, Sean. It's not about journalism. You know, even when I was born, with, hey, we report the news. Then it became sort of journalism. We'll put our spin on the news. Now we're just going to craft narratives and just run with it. It's pretty sad, and it's a shame, because it would be an important profession, and it's why he's on Twitter all the time. He's going to play monkey in the middle. He's going to play monkey in the middle, because if they're not going to be honest, if they're only going to report what they want to hear, not what he actually says, he's going to go right to the people, and that's how he got elected.
And by the way, I'm a convert to him being on Twitter, because I agree he's got to bypass this corrupt media. And I think after all the exposure, and this will pan out in the next number of days, we got to do it. You're a bigger person than me. I think I'd be a little angrier than you tonight. And
it's only because it's late, and I've been going pretty hard all day.
The job to do. Yeah, well, that's true. I actually enjoyed your tweets during the testimony. I was retweeting a lot of it later. All right, Don Jr., thank you.
Good seeing you, Sean.
And up next, on this busy breaking news night, a 2-hour live edition of Hannity. Up next.
At the time, did you say anything to the president about that is not an appropriate request, or did you tell the White House counsel that is not an appropriate request? Someone needs to go tell the president that he can't do these things?
I didn't, no.
All right, Senator Marco Rubio emerging a big star today on his grilling of James Comey. Laura Ingraham will join us and react. Then later, we'll also have more. Jay Sekulow, Monica Crowley, and so much more. Also, a 2-hour edition till midnight Eastern tonight on Hannity.
At the time, did you say anything to the president about that is not an appropriate request, or did you tell the White House counsel that is not an appropriate request? Someone needs to go tell the president that he can't do these things?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. I think, as I said earlier, I think the circumstances were such that I was a bit stunned and didn't have the presence of mind. And I don't know, you know, I don't want to make you sound like I'm Captain Courageous. I don't know whether, even if I had the presence of mind, I would have said to the president, sir, that's wrong. I don't know whether I would have.
Wasn't strong enough. I don't know. I have no idea. Wow. Welcome back to Hannity. That was an exchange today between Senator Marco Rubio and James Comey, where the Florida senator totally exposed a lot of the discrepancies in the former FBI director's treatment of President Trump. Joining us now with much more on this, editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio talk show host Laura Ingraham. All right, I want to give you a big picture room here. I think that was the second longest monologue I've done in my history. Yeah.
Yeah, Hannity, I was like, okay, what time is it, dude? I mean, it's like, okay, you can wrap this up anytime soon.
I spent all day putting that together. Do you mind? What about my hard work?
Hannity, I had popcorn. We have ice cream sodas here. It's great. We're all enjoying it.
All right, let's get your take.
All right. Well, he sounds a lot like Hamlet there, right? He was tortured about what to say or what not to say. At one point I think it was to Dianne Feinstein, he said, maybe if I were a stronger man. And then with Rubio, he said, I don't know. I don't even know if I would have said it if I had the presence of mind. You know what I said, just as a matter of observation about Jim Comey? He's a man who has been a U.S. attorney. He was deputy attorney general. He was director of the FBI and a practicing attorney. Okay, all of those things over years and years and years. And yet he somehow could not gather himself sufficiently to, when behind closed doors with the president, say, sir, I mean, I don't mean any offense, but this interaction, even our interaction one-on-one, could be perceived as inappropriate. The appearance of this could be inappropriate. So for your sake, sir, and mine, I suggest that either we bring someone in or, you know, he could have said that, but instead, he's the kind of guy who runs to the car and starts pecking out a memo to the file. And you know, I've been in Washington a long time, Sean, and I'm sorry, but those are the kind of people who are always in CYA mode. They're always trying to cover or get leverage over someone else instead of being a straight shooter and saying, Mr. President, again, if he really felt that way, Mr. President, this just doesn't feel right for me. And if I understand it's your constitutional authority to direct investigations under Article 2, which he admitted today, but I don't feel right about this. I'm happy to tender my resignation because maybe this is the way you're going to do business, but I don't feel comfortable. He didn't do that, Sean, in my view, after watching him today, because he wanted to remain as director of the FBI. And he thought he could put this little ace in the hole away for a rainy day, this little memo, and he got back to the Justice Department and he showed it to all the other hens around him, and they kind of clucked about it, and what do we do, what do we do? Should we show it to Rosenstein, the deputy AG, or not? And then in the end, they kind of just waited. And that is the worst way to approach a matter for a man with this much experience. At 6'8".
Yeah, okay. But you hit a very important vein.
I was just going to say, Sean, let me just finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, so you tweeted today.
At 6'8", he's bullied. Yeah, he's bullied by a 70-year-old boss of his who said he hopes that he could see to it to wrap up the investigation. Come on.
All right, here's the important thing, and I actually retweeted you today because this was a really good point you made, and it's about what we've been talking about for 2 days. And I will tell you, and we'll get into this with I'll ask your opinion, we'll get Jay's opinion, Geraldo's opinion, and Greg Jarrett's opinion.
Yeah.
But, you know, we had talked about 18 U.S. Code 4, and you pointed this out today. Let me put it up on the screen for our audience, because now he actually said in his testimony today, which is pretty amazing, that, oh, it's not up to me to decide obstruction. But meanwhile, he went back and basically said it. Now, here's where he might have gotten himself into more legal trouble, because whoever having knowledge of actual commission of a felony cognizable by a court of the United States conceals and does not, as soon as possible, make known to the same some judge or the person, civil, military authority under the United States shall be fined and or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. All right. You're right here. He had an obligation, if he thought there was obstruction, to immediately report it, not speculate, oh, maybe Jeff Sessions is leaving in 3 weeks. He had a duty, a legal bound duty to do it. Is he in jeopardy?
Man, I think he could be, and I'm stunned that more wasn't made of that at this hearing. The question was asked, and then they kind of moved on. But again, Sean, he is a sophisticated player on the legal scene. When he was asked about 18 U.S.C. Section 4, he kind of seemed like he was almost not ready for that question, or I thought it was the strangest answer. He kind of shuffled away from that question, but he had been spending all this time avoiding answering the question of whether this could it rise to obstruction. He said, I'm not in a position to do so. But then he made such a big point of saying it was awkward, it was shocking, he felt pressured. He told Sessions, "Don't leave me alone with him." He was so unnerved by the president exercising his constitutional prerogative under Article 2 to ask about investigations, direct investigations. All of that was permissible, and Jim Comey was, I guess, petrified of it. It was a strange colloquy that I don't think got settled, and was odd in my mind that he wasn't ready for that question. It was very strange.
I was wondering who his lawyer was. Now, think about today, though, Laura. You know, oh, there was no investigation ever of the president, but he didn't tell anybody. He, of course, also when you get into this, the president not only didn't encourage him to stop, he encouraged him to go forward as it relates to the investigation with Russia. There was no collusion, we learned today, in any way, shape, manner, or form. And as one senator pointed out, I forget who at this point, you know, the idea, nobody's ever been indicted for obstruction for saying, well, I hope so. I hope nothing happens.
Oh,
that
was, they nailed him. That was Senator Reich from Idaho. Yeah, that was Senator Reich from Idaho. He's kind of an unsung hero. Jim Langford, really? A couple of them had really, really good moments, Tom Cotton. But in the end, it seemed to me that this was an FBI director who was spurned. And his scorn was then directed into this memo to the file that he wrote, that he then discussed with his little clique of confidants, that he then ultimately leaked to a professor at Columbia whom he knew would leak it to the media. The man is a leaker who is trying to salvage his own reputation. He had his feelings hurt. He had his ego bruised, and he tried to carry this off today. So he had some chivalrous view of the way the department should be discussed and treated. If he was so worried about the integrity of the department, why did he go to that second meeting with the president and not stop it if indeed he thought it was so inappropriate? He's the one who put the department in jeopardy, not Donald Trump.
All right, Laura, I'll pay for the popcorn, and you were really drinking not ice cream sodas with vodka on the rocks. I'll pay for all of it. Just send me the bill.
Fantastic. We got it all set up here, Hannity. We need you to come to D.C.
This was one of the most remarkable days I think I've ever seen in politics. 30 years now on radio, 22 years on Fox. What an unbelievable day. Thank you for your analysis. All right, joining us now with more, Chief Counsel at the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, conservative commentator Monica Crowley. Jay, in the lead up to this, 18 U.S. Code 4, that was a big issue. Laura and I were just talking about it. I want your legal take. And you mentioned to me in a text today about another legal issue. I'd like you to bring it up for our audience.
Well, first of all, what do we know now? We know that James Comey's the leaker-in-chief. So let's think about this for a moment. The FBI director took contemporaneous notes on the President of the United States, put them in a drawer. If he was not fired, he would have used them at another point to what? Embarrass the President? That doesn't sound like, somebody you want to be your FBI director. It sounds like J. Edgar Hoover. So, I mean, let's talk about the fact that the FBI director...
J. Edgar Comey. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. Takes notes, leaks them to a friend of his at Columbia Law School, who then calls the New York Times. If you're the President of the United States and that's your FBI director, you know what you'd do? Fire him. Not because you're obstructing justice, because the FBI director is incompetent. So now we've got this witch hunt that's going on. You look at what the former FBI director, the leaker-in-chief, said today, and I look at, of course, Section 4, 18 U.S.C. 4. But there are also a whole series of cases under 18 U.S.C. Section 641. And I think James Comey needs to be looked at by the FBI and the Department of Justice to see if the leaking of the information may in itself be a violation of the law. And I believe, Sean, by the way, that what we have here is a colossal waste of money of the American people. The President is dealing with North Korea. He is dealing with a troubled Middle East. He is working on health care reform, which you've been so involved in, and tax reform. And we've got this distraction that the network media broke into it to cover what? 3 points. One, the President was never under investigation from the outset. That's number one. Number two, that the President never attempted to or obstructed the Russia probe. And number three, what? He hoped that General Flynn was a good guy and that things would work out for him? Well, that's called human compassion. And the FBI director did not bother if he thought it was such an intimidation. By the way, this is an FBI director who said that he was basically intimidated by the President. He should have been stronger. Is that the guy you want running your FBI, going after the terrorists? The guy that said I couldn't be strong enough? No, that's the guy you fire.
Well said. And, interestingly, that same compassion, Monica, that Jay's talking about, much to my chagrin, to be perfectly blunt, and a lot of people that were chanting lock her up, he went on 60 Minutes, they're good people. I don't really want to pursue this. It's a distraction. A lot of conservatives like me were like, really? Go, equal justice under the law, although it wouldn't be the President's decision anyway. So my next point to you is, I want your reaction to the media double standard and the media conspiracy theories and black helicopter theories, and also the double standard as it relates to his treatment of Hillary Clinton, the double standard as it relates to he never took notes about Obama, and then the big bombshell vis-a-vis Loretta Lynch.
Yeah, this whole crafting of James Comey's image by Mr. Comey himself and also his enablers in the media and those around him for years, Sean, this whole crafting of his image as some sort of apolitical straight shooter has been patent nonsense. You go back and look when he was Deputy Attorney General during the Valerie Plame investigation, he allowed that investigation scope to expand so they could go after Scooter Libby as a way to go after Dick Cheney. Time and again, his handling of the Hillary Clinton case, his handling of this investigation, and the fact that he leaked memos, as Jay points out, leaks memos to a Columbia University friend of his to leak to the New York Times to settle a personal score with the President of the United States. This idea that James Comey somehow was a Boy Scout was never true. And that became particularly evident today. And as far as the media goes and the left, look, the left, the establishment in both parties, and the media need to take down Donald Trump. So whether it's this Russia investigation, which, as we have clearly seen today and over time, there is nothing to it. There's no wrongdoing whatsoever, no evidence of that. If it's not this, they will soon find something else, because Donald Trump is so alien to the system. And